Millionaire hugs his drunk mistress in public. Poor ex-wife walks away and he desperately begs. They say money can't buy happiness, yet many people spend their entire lives chasing it. David Lancaster was one such man, a self-made millionaire who seemed to have it all until everything crumbled before his eyes. One morning, he woke up in a quiet, empty mansion to find that his wife, Sophia, had left him without warning. What followed was a journey of shocking secrets, public confessions, and desperate pleas for forgiveness. In this incredible true-to-life drama, you'll discover how the lure of fortune can destroy what matters most, and how one man finally learned the value of love when it was almost too late. David Lancaster woke to the sound of birds chirping outside his sprawling estate in Bel Air. It was a symphony he'd grown accustomed to in his opulent life, a daily reminder that he'd made it. Yet, this morning felt different. He reached out to the other side of the massive king-sized bed, expecting to wrap his arm around his wife, Sophia. Instead, the sheets felt cold. He sat up, panic setting in. The emptiness of the bedroom swallowed him. For a split second, he told himself Sophia was probably just up early for her morning run. Or maybe she was preparing breakfast in the downstairs kitchen with their personal chef, Mariella. But deep down, something felt wrong, very wrong. He slipped on his silk robe and padded across the polished marble floor, calling out Sophia's name. Usually she'd respond cheerily, her melodic voice echoing through the high-ceilinged hallway. Silence. David checked the kitchen, no sign of her. He glanced into the living room, just dust motes dancing in sunlight. Heart pounding, he rushed upstairs to her closet. Panic rose in his throat when he saw empty hangers and vacant shelves where her shoes once lined up in neat rows. In a daze, he scoured the room until he found a folded note on the ornate vanity. The slanting script was unmistakably Sophia's. "David, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. I'm sorry, but I have to go find myself again. You lost me, and you lost yourself. Please don't come looking for me. I need time." The words blurred before his eyes. I need time? He thought he had given her everything, the grand mansion, extravagant vacations, designer jewelry. But in that quiet bedroom, he realized he might have lost the one thing she ever really wanted from him, genuine attention and love. In a moment of clarity, he remembered his father's cautionary words, "What good is success if you have no one to share it with?" David had brushed off such warnings for years, but now they crashed down on him with full force. The abrupt, silent departure of Sophia was a wake-up call only. He didn't yet know the full story behind why she'd left. David threw on a pair of jeans, something he rarely wore, and a simple black T-shirt. Gone was his usual pressed suit, reflecting just how disheveled he felt inside. He needed to talk to someone who had known Sophia as intimately as he did, if not more. The only person who came to mind was Sophia's best friend, Cara Ross. Cara worked as a high-end fashion consultant in Beverly Hills. Although she and David had never really clicked, Cara often teased him about being too serious. She was fiercely loyal to Sophia. If anyone knew where Sophia had gone, it was Cara. After a tense drive, David parked outside Cara's modern, glass-walled apartment building, the throaty roar of his Aston Martin announcing his presence. Cara opened the door slowly, her posture indicating she'd been expecting him. She didn't invite him inside, but instead crossed her arms defensively. "You look terrible," she said, scanning his clothes and the dark circles under his eyes. "Where is she?" David asked, voice hoarse. His usual confidence was nowhere to be found. Cara pressed her lips together. "Not here," she said curtly, "and I'm not going to tell you if I did know. Sophia needs space." She said it herself. David let out a shaky breath. I need to know why she left." Cara's eyes flickered with anger. "You want the truth, David?" "You drove her away," You were so busy chasing deals, hosting parties for potential investors, and flaunting that perfect life on social media that you forgot who she was. She told me she felt invisible. David shook his head. Invisible? I gave her everything. Kara's face tightened. Everything but your time and respect. Did you ever ask her about her charity projects? Did you even remember her birthday without your assistant reminding you? You bragged about your success to your high-profile associates, but never once thanked her for standing by your side. Tears pricked at David's eyes, surprising him. He wasn't used to raw emotion, but something in Kara's words, layered with years of frustration, broke through his defenses. He recalled how, at the last gala event, he'd spent hours discussing market trends with other millionaires instead of dancing with his wife. The memory stung. If she reaches out to you, please tell her I'm sorry, he whispered. Kara nodded, her anger tempered by the genuine remorse she saw. But she shut the door, leaving David alone in the hallway. The hollow echo of the closing door reverberated in his heart. As he walked away, he realized he needed to do more than apologize. He had to change. And for that, he needed to confront his past. David's rise to wealth was a classic rags to riches story. He was born in a small town outside St. Louis, Missouri. His father, Martin Lancaster, worked as a school janitor, and his mother, Eloise, was a waitress at a local diner. David's parents poured every spare dime into his education, believing it was his ticket to a better life. When David graduated from the local community college, he moved to Los Angeles with dreams of making it big. He worked menial jobs while attending night classes, eventually landing an internship at Merriweather Capital, one of the city's top private equity firms, under the mentorship of James Anderson, a real, seasoned CFO, with a reputation for turning companies around. David honed his business acumen. James was tough but fair, and he recognized the spark of ambition in David. Remember, James would say, a deal without heart is just a transaction. People matter. Over the years, David soared through the corporate ranks. At 30, he made his first million by spearheading a massive technology acquisition. The money followed quickly after that. He built a personal empire, investing in tech startups, real estate developments, and even cryptocurrencies. Soon, he was a fixture at exclusive parties, dining with celebrities, forging alliances with CEOs, and snapping pictures in front of private jets. It was during this meteoric rise that he met Sophia. She was an event planner at a charity gala for underprivileged children. When David saw her, it was like the rest of the crowd dissolved around him. Her bright eyes and infectious laughter lit up the room. She spoke passionately about using wealth for good, about how funds raised that evening would support art programs in struggling communities. David was entranced by her heartfelt dedication, something he found both refreshing and unfamiliar. They married a year later in a lavish ceremony overlooking the Pacific. David's associates deemed them the perfect power couple, the brilliant millionaire and the compassionate beauty. But behind the fairy tale image, cracks formed. The more successful David became, the more consumed he was by his work. Late-night dinners turned into solitary meals for Sophia. Vacations were cut short by urgent phone calls. Over time, the laughter that once united them grew silent. In the aftermath of Sophia's disappearance, David found himself sitting alone in his home office, staring at an old photograph on his desk. It was their wedding picture, both smiling, eyes glimmering with promise. How had he forgotten what that felt like? He sifted through drawers, desperate for any clue. As he rummaged, he came across a small notebook bound in leather. Sophia's handwriting covered the pages. It was a journal, likely started when they got engaged. David debated whether to read it. After all, it was private, but he needed to understand how things had gone wrong. Flipping through the journal, he saw entries written during happy times. I love how he brings me coffee every morning, even if he's rushing to an early meeting. It's these small gestures that make me feel cherished. Then he reached a later entry. I can't believe he missed our anniversary. All I wanted was a simple dinner with him, but he was too busy networking at some business conference. He says he's doing it for us, but I feel like I'm losing him. David's heart clenched. The pages continued, chronicling a slow, painful drift. One line cut him more deeply than any other. He doesn't see me. He thinks throwing money at problems is enough, but all I want is him. What happened to the man I married? Tears slipped down David's cheeks. He realized that each time Sophia felt neglected, he'd attempt to placate her with gifts, designer handbags, diamond necklaces, a new car. But never once did he truly address the root problem, his emotional absence. Reading her innermost thoughts made him realize how lonely she must have felt in the vast mansion that was supposed to be their shared dream home. Armed with more understanding and guilt than he'd ever felt, David vowed to find Sophia. Ignoring Kara's warning, he hired a private investigator named Ryan Kim to uncover where she might have gone. Ryan was known for his discreet methods and extensive network across Los Angeles. Days turned into weeks, and David waited anxiously for updates. He went through the motions at work, but his usual sharpness was dulled. Colleagues noticed something was off. Board meetings that used to buzz with his confident insights turned uneasy as David stumbled through presentations, haunted by thoughts of Sophia. James Anderson, the CFO, who once mentored David, pulled him aside after a particularly lackluster conference call. "Son, you're not yourself. We're on the verge of a major merger, and I need your head in the game." David sighed, looking down at the polished table. "I'm sorry. My personal life is in chaos right now. Sophia left me. I don't know where she is." James's stern face softened. "I always told you to remember people matter most. Perhaps it's time to refocus on what's truly important. Take a break if you need. Money will still be here when you get back." Those words resonated more than any business lecture. David realized that in pursuit of success, he'd ignored the warnings from mentors and old friends. He'd become the kind of person he once swore he'd never be: callous, distant, obsessed with wealth. When Ryan finally called with a lead, David's heart pounded like a drum. "She's staying at a small inn in Santa Barbara," Ryan said, "but I'd advise caution. She specifically told people not to reveal her whereabouts." David didn't hesitate. He jumped into his Aston Martin and sped north on the scenic Pacific Coast Highway. The drive was a blur of crashing waves and flickering sunlight, perfectly at odds with the storm raging inside him. Over and over, he rehearsed what he'd say to her. How would he apologize? What could he possibly do to show he was willing to change? Santa Barbara glowed at dusk, the vibrant oranges and pinks of the sky painting a romantic backdrop. David felt a lump in his throat as he parked outside the modest inn Ryan had mentioned. The place was charming, tucked away among blooming flower beds and towering palm trees, a stark contrast to the grand hotels David typically frequented. Heart pounding, David stepped up to the reception area where a friendly older woman named Mrs. Whitaker greeted him. "May I help you?" she asked, eyeing the anxious man before her. David cleared his throat. "I'm looking for my wife, Sophia Lancaster. I believe she's staying here." Mrs. Whitaker's smile tightened. "Mr. Lancaster, I'm sorry, but I have instructions from Miss Sophia. She doesn't wish to be disturbed." David's shoulders sagged. "Please, I only want to see her, talk to her, even for a moment." Mrs. Whitaker hesitated, obviously torn. Finally, she gestured to the small garden behind the inn. "She's by the fountain, but please, be gentle. She's been through a lot." With each step through the narrow garden pathway, David's stomach twisted. The fountain came into view, a softly lit structure where water cascaded over stone cherubs. There, on a wooden bench, sat Sophia, her face illuminated by the warm glow of nearby lanterns. Her usually vibrant eyes looked tired, carrying the weight of sleepless nights. "Sophia," David whispered, voice trembling. She turned, startled, and quickly looked away. "Why are you here?" she asked, her tone empty of the warmth he once cherished. David approached cautiously. "I'm sorry," he began, words stumbling out. "I know I hurt you. I wasn't there when you needed me." She stood abruptly. "Hurt me? You destroyed me, David. You made me doubt my worth. Every time I tried to talk to you, you'd brush me off, throw some lavish gesture at me like that made everything okay." He reached out, but she stepped back. "Sophia, please, I'm ready to listen. I want to make this right." Tears filled her eyes. "Make it right? Do you even know why I left?" David's heart clenched. The question had haunted him for weeks. "Because I didn't value you enough." She looked away. "I've been thinking about this for a long time. I didn't leave you just because you were busy or because you threw money around. I left you because you forgot to love me, David. You forgot that I'm a person, not a trophy." He had no rebuttal. Everything she said was true. "I want to do better," he said softly. Sophia's tears fell. "I need time to believe that's even possible. You have no idea how lonely I felt in that mansion, surrounded by people who saw me as an accessory to your success." David lowered his head, tears burning behind his eyes. "I understand. If you need time, I'll give it to you. But please know I'm not giving up on us." She hugged her arms around her body, nodding, but not looking at him. The silence was heavy, an uncertain promise lingering in the fragrant night air. After a moment she whispered, "Go home, David. We both need space." With a heavy heart, he obeyed, leaving behind the woman he loved and a fountain that echoed the quiet heartbreak of their conversation. Back in Los Angeles, David decided he couldn't continue life as usual. He took James Anderson's advice and requested a temporary leave from Merriweather Capital. The board members, though initially concerned about ongoing deals, surprisingly granted him a sabbatical. Something about his haunted look and unwavering request made them realize how serious he was. With his newfound freedom, David started making changes. Small steps, at first, but each one deliberate. He revisited the charitable foundations Sophia had been passionately supporting. He discovered an entire wing of a children's hospital that Sophia had quietly funded. She had never bragged about it. She simply believed in helping the less fortunate. David met with the hospital's director, Dr. Priya Menon, who told him stories of how Sophia had visited sick children, bringing them coloring books and reading stories at their bedsides. Tears welled in David's eyes as he pictured her radiant smile brightening the hospital corridors. He felt a strange mix of pride and regret. He wished he had been by her side during those visits, instead of locked away in his office, analyzing profit margins. "This is what she cared about," David murmured, gently touching a small plaque that read, "The Sophia Lancaster Pediatric Ward." He realized that beyond the public galas, Sophia had been quietly donating her resources and her time. Humbled and inspired, he wrote a personal check to the hospital, pledging to expand the pediatric ward in Sophia's name. "Doctor." Menon blinked in surprise. She had known David only as a distant figure, a millionaire more concerned with his business than charitable work. Now, she saw a man attempting to reconnect with his wife's spirit. David's transformation didn't stop there. He sold off some of his prized possessions, the flashy sports cars, the yacht he rarely used, the watch collection worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Instead, he set up a scholarship fund in honor of his late mother, Eloise, who had never been able to attend college. The Eloise Lancaster Scholarship aimed to help underprivileged students, especially young women, pursue higher education. In a moment of profound introspection, David also visited his childhood hometown in Missouri. He reconnected with Mr. John Smith, an old high school teacher who'd once told him he had the potential to change the world if he remembered to stay true to himself. Standing in the dusty school gymnasium, David felt an unexpected wave of nostalgia for the kid he used to be, the dreamer who valued relationships and looked up at the night sky, imagining a brighter future for his family. Amid these changes, not everyone was convinced of David's sudden turnaround. Word got out that he was on sabbatical, and rumors spread that Merriweather Capital might be in trouble. Investors questioned if David was taking a step back because of looming legal issues or an impending bankruptcy. The media, always hungry for a scandal, started hounding him. Tabloid headlines blared, "Millionaire on the run," and "Marriage in shambles. Did unfaithfulness drive Sophia away?" None of it was true, but the speculation only deepened David's resolve to set things right. If he was going to reclaim Sophia's trust, he had to face the rumors and show he was a changed man, even if that meant dealing with some unwanted attention. Then, a bigger problem emerged. One of David's former business partners, Gideon Reese, claimed David owed him a substantial sum from a previous real estate venture. Gideon, known for his ruthless tactics, seized the moment of David's public vulnerability. He filed a lawsuit, alleging breach of contract. The lawsuit threatened to drain not just David's finances, but also his reputation. Facing a potential legal battle, David had to decide whether to settle quietly or fight back. Yet, in a twist of fate, David found an ally in an unexpected place: Sophia's friend, Cara Ross. Although Cara had initially been protective of Sophia, she saw the genuine shift in David's actions. She reached out to him, offering to connect him with a top legal counselor who specialized in contract disputes. With her help, David secured a strong defense team and began negotiations to address Gideon's claims. Throughout the ordeal, David felt a renewed sense of purpose. While the lawsuit was a distraction, it also underscored how much he'd grown. Before, he might have tried to handle Gideon's demands with under-the-table payoffs. Now, he faced the challenge openly and ethically, aiming to preserve his integrity. While handling the lawsuit, David continued volunteering at the children's hospital once a week. One evening, as he was reading a storybook to a timid girl named Lucy, he noticed a familiar figure across the hallway: Sophia, holding balloons for the kids. His heart leapt to his throat. For a long moment, they locked eyes, surprise and uncertainty flitting between them. Sophia managed a small smile, then walked over. Lucy giggled at the colorful balloons, breaking the tension. Sophia handed them to the children, her nurturing nature on full display. After tucking Lucy in for the night, David and Sophia stepped outside into the dimly lit parking lot. The cool air carried the scent of jasmine. "I didn't expect to see you here," Sophia said, hugging herself against the chill. David offered her his jacket, but she shook her head. "I've been coming here every week," he replied. "I wanted to understand what you were so passionate about." "The kids. They're amazing. I see why you love this place." Sophia looked down, her emotions swirling. "Thank you for supporting them," she said quietly. "The staff told me about your donation. It's the least I can do," David murmured. "I just want you to know I'm trying to be the man you deserve." She hesitated, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've seen some of the changes you've made. Cara told me you've sold off your collections, started scholarships. You're actually working with the charities I care about. But I need to be sure this isn't just a phase." David's gaze softened. "I understand. I won't pressure you, but if you ever want to talk, really talk, just let me know." They stood there in silence, the distance between them not just physical but emotional, a careful chasm neither dared to cross too quickly. Finally, Sophia sighed and gave a tentative nod. "I will." she whispered, before walking away into the cool night, leaving David with a mixture of hope and longing. The legal battle with Gideon Reese intensified. Lawyers argued back and forth, with Gideon seeking millions in damages. Public opinion was split, and David found himself the subject of media scrutiny again. However, an unexpected ally appeared in the form of James Anderson, his old mentor. James reached out, offering insider knowledge. He provided documentation showing that Gideon had falsified certain deal terms. "I had my suspicions for a while," James admitted. "When I heard you were being dragged through the mud, I did some digging." David was overwhelmed with gratitude. Together, they presented the evidence in court, dismantling Gideon's lawsuit. In a dramatic twist, Gideon dropped his claims to avoid potential legal repercussions for fraud, and David walked away vindicated. The experience further solidified David's new outlook on life. Partnerships built on respect, integrity, and genuine friendship were infinitely more valuable than hollow alliances formed solely for profit. He thanked James, who simply smiled. "People matter," James repeated, reminding David of the lesson he'd preached years ago. Despite the legal victory, David's marriage was still in limbo. He yearned to show Sophia not just that he was sorry, but that he truly loved her. Then, Kara contacted him with a surprising invitation. Sophia was organizing a benefit concert for the children's hospital. "She needs sponsors," Kara said quietly. "I can't promise anything, but if you're truly serious about winning her back, this might be your chance." David didn't hesitate. He poured resources into the event, but more importantly, he offered his time. He worked side by side with Sophia, helping secure artists, arranging seating, and ensuring the night would be a success. Their interactions were cordial but distant. He could tell she was still guarded, unsure if his transformation was permanent. The night of the concert arrived. The hospital ballroom was filled with music, laughter, and the joyful chatter of donors, doctors, and parents. Sophia looked radiant in a simple, flowing gown, greeting each guest with a genuine smile. David spent most of the evening making sure every detail was perfect, from the lighting to the refreshments. Toward the end of the night, the master of ceremonies announced a special speech from the event's primary sponsor. David took the stage. His hands trembled slightly, a rare moment of vulnerability for a man once so confident in the public eye. "Good evening, everyone," he began, scanning the crowd until his eyes landed on Sophia. "Standing near the front, I'm David Lancaster, and I'm honored to be part of this wonderful event. Seeing everyone come together to support the Children's Hospital has renewed my faith in humanity. But tonight, I want to speak from the heart about something deeply personal." He cleared his throat, voice quavering. "For much of my life, I believed success was measured by wealth and status. In chasing after that success, I neglected the one person who means more to me than anything. I lost sight of love, compassion, and the beauty of human connection. And so, I want to say this publicly." David stepped down from the podium, moving closer to Sophia. The crowd parted, creating a path between them. The tension was palpable, the room silent. "Sophia," he said, voice thick with emotion, "I'm sorry for all the ways I failed you. I'm sorry for every lonely night you spent wondering if I cared. I'm sorry for treating you like a fixture in my life instead of the amazing woman you are. I want to spend the rest of my days proving that I've changed, not with expensive gifts or grand gestures, but by truly being present, by listening, by loving you the way you deserve." Tears glistened in Sophia's eyes. She hesitated, visibly affected by his words, but still uncertain. David took a shaky breath. "If you still love me, if you can find it in your heart to forgive me, I'm asking you, please come back home. I'm ready to be a better man, for you, for us." A murmur swept through the crowd. Some dabbed at their eyes with handkerchiefs, moved by the raw vulnerability. Sophia stared at David, her chest rising and falling in a silent battle of emotions. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Sophia's face contorted with emotion, relief, pain, love, and uncertainty all swirling together. She took a step forward, her eyes locked on David. "You really hurt me," she began, voice trembling. "I don't know if I can just forget everything that happened, but I also can't deny how much you mean to me." David nodded, tears in his own eyes. "I understand. I'll earn your trust back every day." Sophia inhaled shakily. "I can't promise it'll be easy, but I'm willing to try, because I believe in what we had, and I see the man you're trying to become." She moved closer and placed her hand in his. The crowd erupted in applause, some whistling, others wiping tears. David's heart felt as if it might burst from his chest. In that moment, he realized that no amount of money or success could ever compete with the feeling of holding Sophia's hand again. The benefit concert ended on a triumphant note, not just for the cause it served, but for the personal victory of two souls finding their way back to each other. Despite their emotional reunion, David and Sophia knew their relationship wasn't fixed overnight. They decided to attend couples therapy, a step David would have once scoffed at. During sessions, led by Dr. Marcia Weber, they learned to communicate honestly, unearthing resentments, fears, and hopes. Sophia admitted she'd often felt overshadowed by David's wealth and reputation. She confessed that sometimes she wondered if she'd lost her identity in his shadow. David, in turn, revealed how his insecurities about growing up poor had driven him to obsess over financial success, to the point of neglecting the emotional bonds that truly mattered. These sessions were grueling, tears often replacing words, but each breakthrough reminded them why they had fallen in love in the first place. The sweet memories of early dates, shared aspirations, and silly inside jokes blended with the painful awareness of how far they'd drifted. Yet, they chose to walk forward together, learning to trust again. Outside therapy, they spent more time doing simple things, cooking meals together, going for evening strolls on the beach, even gardening, something Sophia had always loved but never pursued because David once deemed it a poor investment of time. Now, kneeling side by side in the soil, they found a peaceful intimacy that money could never buy. One of the biggest changes was the transformation of their Bel Air mansion. Where it once seemed cold and unwelcoming, more like a showpiece than a home, it now brimmed with life. Sophia introduced warm-colored accents, cozy reading nooks, and an entire wing dedicated to a small art studio where children from the hospital could come for workshops. David repurposed his elaborate wine cellar into a music room for local youth programs, equipping it with instruments for kids who couldn't afford their own. The once ostentatious ballroom, the site of so many business parties, was downsized to create a library and communal gathering space. Soon, Saturdays at the Lancaster home became Community Day, with neighbors and volunteers coming together to organize charity drives, art classes, and music lessons. Sophia's laughter echoed through the corridors, and David found a deeper, more enduring satisfaction than he'd ever felt in his billionaire lifestyle. He discovered that success was not about stacking zeros in a bank account, but about the positive impact he could make on people's lives, beginning with his own wife. Their relationship was on the mend, but one lingering matter weighed heavily on both of them: David's father, Martin Lancaster. Martin had grown estranged from David over the years, seeing his son's transformation into a wealthy businessman as a betrayal of their humble roots. The last time they'd spoken, Martin accused David of being heartless, pointing out that he'd forgotten the value of hard work and community. Now, David felt a strong need to reconcile with his father. "I have to see him," he told Sophia one morning. She squeezed his hand. "Then let's go," she said, determination lighting her eyes. They flew to Street Louis, making the drive to the small town where David was raised. The modest house still stood on a cracked sidewalk, the paint peeling from its wooden boards. In the driveway sat Martin's old pickup truck, a relic from David's childhood. When Martin opened the door, his hardened gaze took in the sight of his son and Sophia. Time and bitterness had etched lines into the older man's face, but Sophia's warm smile seemed to disarm him, if only slightly. "What are you doing here?" Martin asked gruffly. David swallowed, stepping forward. "I came to say I'm sorry for drifting away, for not visiting, for becoming someone you didn't recognize." Martin's eyes flickered with emotion. "Is that so?" David nodded, taking a deep breath. "I was blinded by money, Dad. I forgot what you and Mom taught me, but I'm working to change that. Sophia has helped me see what really matters. People, family." Sophia chimed in gently. "And he's really trying. I promise you that." Something in her voice, in David's stance, broke down Martin's defenses. He opened the door wider, signaling they could enter. Their conversation spanned hours, touching on old memories, regrets, and hopes for a better future. Martin shared how lonely he'd felt after David stopped calling regularly, how proud he was of his son's achievements, but saddened by his seeming detachment from the family. By the time they left, Martin and David were on tentative but hopeful ground. Sophia could see a glint in Martin's eyes, suggesting he might finally give his son another chance. After reconciling with his father and steadily rebuilding his marriage, David felt a sense of peace he hadn't known before. He resumed work at Merriweather Capital, but on his own terms. He refused to work more than 50 hours a week, dedicating the rest of his time to family life and charitable engagements. Initially, some partners grumbled, but they quickly recognized that a balanced, empathetic David was even more effective as a leader. The final test of David's newfound priorities came when he was presented with an enormous business opportunity, overseas one, that would require him to relocate for 6 months. It promised substantial profits, enough to fund expansions of various philanthropic projects. However, it would also mean uprooting Sophia or leaving her behind in LA, risking the delicate balance they'd achieved. Sophia and David discussed it at length. "I won't stand in your way if this is something you really want," Sophia said softly, though her eyes showed concern. David smiled gently. "We'll find another way. I'm not risking what we have for a quick profit. Money isn't everything. We'll build our dreams together at our own pace." In that moment, Sophia knew he truly had changed. She leaned in, pressing her forehead against his. "I love you," she whispered, the words finally free of doubt. A year had passed since the day Sophia left the scribbled note that rocked David's entire world. In those 12 months, they had pieced their lives and their love back together with painstaking care. The once quiet and cavernous mansion in Bel Air now thrummed with warmth and laughter. Walls that echoed with loneliness were repainted in vibrant hues, the sterile decor replaced by cozy furniture and family photos. In every corner of the house there were signs of new life, children's drawings tacked to a bulletin board, potted plants that Sophia faithfully watered each morning, and the gentle hum of classical music when guests arrived for workshops or charity events. David stood on the second-floor balcony, gazing at a spectacular golden sunset cascading over the horizon. It was a sight he used to dismiss as just another day in sunny Los Angeles. But now, each streak of orange and pink felt like a gift. The year of changes had taught him to notice life's subtleties, to savor fleeting moments instead of rushing through them. He heard soft footsteps behind him and smiled even before he turned. Sophia joined him, sliding the glass door shut with a gentle click. She rested her forearms on the balcony railing, the gentle breeze stirring loose strands of her dark hair. "Remember," she began, her voice reflective, "the very first day I stepped foot in this mansion. It was so massive, and I thought, I don't belong here. It's too grand, too polished. I was afraid I'd get lost in the long halls and never find my way." David slipped his arm around her waist, pulling her closer so she could feel his steady heartbeat. "I remember how uncertain you looked," he admitted, "but at the same time, you were the one bright spot in a sea of overly polished people, most of whom only cared about status or money. I was so focused on appearances and deals that I didn't realize I was neglecting the most precious person I had ever met." Sophia's eyes shone with a mixture of nostalgia and relief. "Sometimes I wonder if I would have stayed had you asked me differently, if you'd shown just a fraction of the understanding you show now. Back then, I felt invisible." David's throat tightened. He gently squeezed her hand. "I wish I could go back in time, but I know I can't. All I can do is make sure that from now on, you never feel invisible again." They stood in companionable silence, watching the sun's final rays bathe the hills and treetops in a fleeting, fiery glow. Below them, the backyard was alive with soft chatter. It was Community Day, a tradition they'd started several months ago. Local children, hospital staff, volunteers, and friends bustled about, setting up art stations under canopy tents, painting bright murals, and tuning instruments for an impromptu music class. Even some of David's former business colleagues had come by, intrigued by his new approach to life and curious to see how the once exclusive estate had transformed into a welcoming community hub. "Do you hear that?" Sophia asked, cocking her head. Music drifted up from somewhere near the pool, a cheerful tune played by a group of children. One of them giggled loudly, prompting a cascade of laughter. David nodded, a soft smile on his lips. "I never thought these halls would resound with that kind of joy," he said, recalling how the mansion used to be a stage for stiff cocktail parties and business dealings. Back then, everything was about flaunting success, not sharing it. Sophia leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder. The warmth of his presence felt comforting and safe. She recalled the uneasy nights she'd spent in this very house, waiting for David to come home from a meeting or business trip, only to watch him bury himself in late-night phone calls. That version of their marriage seemed like a distant memory, now an echo of unfulfilled needs and broken promises. Through heartbreak and soul-searching, they had learned that true partnership required openness, genuine effort, and mutual respect. "I love how we've turned this place into something meaningful," Sophia whispered. "We're helping kids discover art, music, and a sense of community they might not have otherwise. They see a door open here, not a barrier." David sighed contentedly. "It's all thanks to you. You showed me another way to live, one that's about connection, not just achievement. And you reintroduced me to my own empathy, something I'd buried under ambition for too long." They stayed like that for a while, the glow of the setting sun reflecting in their eyes. Downstairs, people were beginning to gather the children's artwork and store the instruments, and the hum of socializing drifted up like a gentle current of life. Sometimes one of the volunteers would glance up to the balcony, spot the couple, and smile at the peaceful image they presented, once wounded souls standing together in the twilight, forging a new path. "Hard to believe it's been a year," Sophia murmured, sliding her hand to rest against David's chest. She felt his heartbeat thrum beneath her fingertips. "It feels like both yesterday and a lifetime ago." David nodded. "Every day I look at you, I'm reminded of how close I came to losing everything that mattered. Losing you. That year taught me that love, real, deep, unconditional love, doesn't thrive on negligence and complacency. It needs nourishment, the way we're nourishing these children's spirits with art and music." Sophia felt a swelling in her chest as she regarded him. She thought about the woman she had been when she wrote that note, the trembling hand, the tears staining the paper, the mix of despair and resolve in her heart. Back then, she truly believed their love had died. Now, she saw new life blossoming where they'd once found only emptiness. The mansion itself was a testament to rebirth, open doors, a bustling garden, and smiling faces. "You're right," she said softly, "but I also learned to stand up for myself, to walk away when I wasn't being cherished. That's a lesson I won't forget, even though things are better now." She looked at him, her tone gentler than her words. Because self-worth means understanding that we deserve more than the scraps of someone's time. David nodded, absorbing her truth. "I'm glad you did," he replied, voice hushed with emotion. "If you hadn't left, maybe I never would have woken up to the life we have now. I might still be lost in boardrooms and lavish parties, missing out on what's truly essential." They both turned toward the setting sun once more. As the last rays dipped below the horizon, David kissed the top of Sophia's head. In the distance, the soft strum of a guitar could be heard as the last of the children put on an impromptu mini-concert. Squeals of delight echoing off the walls of the once intimidating mansion. Sophia and David exchanged a glance, quietly acknowledging the miracle they were living, a new beginning built from shattered dreams, heartfelt confessions, and the unwavering determination to love better. Hand in hand, they left the balcony to join their guests below, carrying the warm glow of the sunset in their hearts, ready to continue the journey they had started together, a journey that promised hope, healing, and the simple yet profound joy of two souls choosing each other anew every single day. To commemorate their renewed bond, Sophia and David hosted a small party at their home. Close friends, family, and neighbors gathered under twinkling lights in the garden. Martin Lancaster flew in from Missouri, and even Cara Ross, once David's fiercest critic, came, looking genuinely happy to see them so in love. Dr. Priya Menon from the Children's Hospital gave a short speech, thanking the Lancasters for their tireless efforts and the expanded pediatric wing that had helped so many kids receive better care. James Anderson raised a toast, praising David for rediscovering the heart in business and in life. Then Sophia spoke. She thanked everyone for their support during the hardest year of her life. She talked about how she rediscovered her self-worth and how David's transformation renewed her faith in their marriage. "Sometimes you have to step away to realize what you have," she said, tears glistening. "And sometimes the person who hurt you finds the courage to change." David joined her, taking her hand. He looked around at the gathered faces, each person having played a role in their story. "I wanted to be a millionaire for as long as I can remember. But it took losing the woman I love to realize that life's real riches are found in love, compassion, and community. Thank you for letting me learn that lesson." They ended the night dancing under the stars, a simple waltz they had once performed in a grand ballroom but never truly enjoyed. This time, each step felt right, perfectly in sync heart to heart. Even with their happy reunion, David and Sophia knew challenges would arise. They were both ambitious, passionate individuals with big dreams. The difference now was that they knew how to prioritize and communicate, whether they were planning charity fundraisers or deciding on a weekend getaway. They approached each decision as a team. Sophia had a dream to establish a permanent art therapy center for sick children, and David wholeheartedly supported her. In turn, David wanted to create a mentorship program for underprivileged youth interested in business and finance, giving them a head start he never had. They pooled their resources, energies, and talents, forging a path that combined their unique strengths. Time and again, David was reminded of the note Sophia had left in the beginning. "I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. I'm sorry." but I have to go find myself again. You lost me, and you lost yourself. Please don't come looking for me. I need time." Now, he understood that she'd been right. They had lost each other, but by giving her the space she needed, and by embarking on a true journey of self-reflection, they'd found themselves again, stronger, wiser, and more deeply in love. Months later, the Children's Hospital planned a grand reopening of its expanded pediatric wing. Sophia and David were the guests of honor. A crowd of hospital staff, patients, and reporters gathered for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. As Sophia snipped the red ribbon, applause roared through the courtyard. A local reporter, Maria Gonzalez, approached them. "David, Sophia, how does it feel to see the results of your contributions?" Sophia beamed. "We're just happy to be part of something that brings joy and healing to these children." Maria turned to David. "Some say your personal transformation was as significant as the hospital's expansion. Care to comment?" David smiled wryly. "I owe it all to Sophia, my guiding star. Without her, I'd still be lost in a world of meaningless deals." Then in front of everyone, David turned to Sophia, gently lifting her hand. "And there's one more thing," he said, his voice carrying through the crowd. "I proposed to Sophia a few years ago in a grand way, but I never truly honored that promise. Today, in the midst of this place that means so much to both of us, I want to renew our vows." Sophia's eyes widened, tears threatening to spill. David sank to one knee, producing a simple band. "Will you continue this journey with me, loving me, challenging me, and growing with me?" Sophia's tears spilled freely. "Yes," she whispered, voice trembling. The audience cheered, some dabbing their eyes, as David slid the modest ring onto her finger. It wasn't flashy or diamond-encrusted, just a plain gold band symbolizing their new beginning. They sealed their renewal with a tender kiss, surrounded by the doctors, nurses, children, and supporters who had witnessed their love story's rebirth. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment for the local news and for their own memories. In that single moment, under the bright sun and amid the laughter of children, David Lancaster fully realized why his wife had left him and how incredible it felt to have truly won her back. In the end, love triumphed over arrogance, misunderstandings, and the relentless pursuit of wealth. David Lancaster's journey proved that no amount of money can replace genuine affection, empathy, and connection. He discovered that true success comes from embracing our humanity, cherishing relationships, giving back to the community, and finding meaning beyond bank balances. Through heartbreak and redemption, David and Sophia reunited with renewed understanding and commitment, proving that it's never too late to change, to grow, and to stand for what truly matters. If you found inspiration and hope in this dramatic tale of loss and reconciliation, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life drama stories. Your support helps us continue to bring you stories that touch the heart and remind us of the extraordinary power of love. Thank you for watching.